there, good afternoon. Cindy Dole here, and this is Home Wizards, your radio home for all things home, garden, and life improvement. Thanks for hanging out with me this Saturday. This is the show, that's all about ways to help you discover the things you need to do, the things that you can do. Maybe it's something really small, maybe it's something big to improve those spaces you call home inside and outside so that when you do get home, you go, you know what, life is pretty darn good. And whether it's a big idea or something simple, more often we try to bring it all to you here every Saturday from 2 to 4. So I'm so glad you're here. The number to call in, by the way, keep it handy, is 888-539-2980, 888-539-2980. Coming up on the show today, I love living outside, and especially with the weather. It's been so great. The humidity is dipping down, thankfully. I just got back from very humid Louisville, Kentucky, but boy, are we lucky to have this nice SoCal weather. But what about your front yard and backyard experience? When you walk to your front door, what are you feeling? What is it looking like? Is that entry really what you want it to be? Is it representing who you are? And does it make you just feel like you're proud to live where you're living? Well, we're going to talk with a great guy who's going to help us change things if you want to change them, and also we'll visit the backyard as well. Billy Derian, you know him from the DIY show Extra Yardage. He's here with some really fun ideas, some solutions to help you kind of cut through the confusion as you look at those spaces on the outside, all right? Then later on, we're going to head inside, and when you look around in your home, whether it is an apartment or a condo or a big house, whatever it is there part of it where you just wish you would have it look differently or feel differently? Is it the furniture maybe, or is it the countertops, whatever it is, the flooring, the color in the walls? When you think about all this, are you perhaps considering that it would be neat to have an interior designer help you? Well, how do you hire an interior designer? How do you find that right pro that's the perfect fit? Because it's kind of like a marriage in a way, or finding a doctor, I think. You want to make sure that they're the right kind of person who's going to really listen to you. Well, we're going to talk with a group that really helps you find out the right kind of designers to make sure that they're qualified so that you don't fall into some of the pitfalls and just have someone who is not going to really lead you in the right direction. And remember, as you're listening, you can always go back to the website, cindydole.com, where you can listen to the past shows in the on-air section. And, of course, you can also download the app. You just take your phone, your Android or your iPhone to the front page of cindydole.com. You wave it there, and you can take all the shows with you on the road. And, by the way, I also hope when you're there, you go to the Facebook page. I've got something really, really fun and cool happening now. We are waiting for a monarch butterfly to basically spread its wings and fly. I think I shared with you that a few weeks back we had this guy on who is a specialist in monarch gardens, and he gave me the ticket. It is the milkweed plant. And this milkweed plant that comes in all different kinds of varieties. I wouldn't necessarily just pick the milkweed plant unless I knew that it did this, because it's an okay looking plant, but boy, what it does is so magical. And then it attracts the monarch butterfly to lay its seeds, to lay its eggs, and then to basically have the caterpillar become the cocoon, to become the butterfly, and it's this whole metamorphosis that happens right before your eyes. And so when you go to my Facebook page, follow Cindy, you'll see the whole process. And today the picture is so great. It's the basic cocoon that's now in a dark brown shade, but it's sheer. And so inside the cocoon, you can see those beautiful orange and black markings on the wings of the monarch in there waiting. And at any day now, we're going to see it then become a butterfly out of the cocoon. So I'm going to try to capture it all. I hope I even can capture the video. So it's very exciting. I can't take my eyes off our patio. So maybe you might be inspired to get the milkweed plant as well. Now, just in a second, we're going to go to our first guest and talk about more things to do to your outside. But I got to tell you, I just got back from this really fun thing. I went to one of the neat things I get to do for this job is travel to different brands' headquarters to see what are the new and up-and-coming things. And just got back from the GE Global Headquarters. Well, we got to cook using the appliances that are the very new greatest things with their GE chefs. And one of the secrets that they share with me that I never thought of, and maybe Billy D, who also does a lot of cooking, knew this. When you want to have something, let's say you're stir-frying meat, and you want it to caramelize, these chefs were saying, don't stir it. Let the pan or the skillet on your cooktop get really, really hot, and let it stay there in the olive oil or whatever, and like a minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 4 minutes, and don't even touch it. And so you're so freaking out because you want to touch it because you're afraid it's going to burn. But what happens, they say, is if you start to stir it, it releases the meat juices, and now instead of caramelizing, you're boiling or stewing that stir fry. So that was kind of a cool tip that I learned. And the other thing is, if in terms of making some great kind of an Asian fusion sauce, ketchup and mustard. ketchup and mustard. You put that together and then you add these other spicy things, but oh my gosh, who knew? But I guess Billy D knew. Anyway, let's get to our first guest. It's all about some great ideas for the yard.
I'll never beat the view from my front porch looking in. There's a carrot top that can barely walk with a sippy cup of milk.
All right, so when you walk up to your front door, what does that front yard, that front entry experience really say about you? Does it make you wish that you could change it? And how about the backyard? Well, here's your chance. I know that you have some problems and issues because we all do. And Billy Derian has solved so many of them. We all love him on the show that you see on the DIY network, Extra Yardage. But his background is so much more than TV. He's been there and done that for, 25 plus years. He's gotten his hands dirty installing all kinds of things from hardscapes to waterscapes. And so, Billy D, great to have you here.
Hi, Cindy.
Hi.
Thanks for having me back.
Fun. And you have the tan to prove that you really are outdoors.
I do, and this is a real tan. This is not a spray tan. This is not a tanning bed tan. This comes from the sun.
I love that. And so we're going to help people with all different kinds of things. By the way, the number again to keep handy, maybe you have a question about your front or backyard, call on in. Love to hear from you. It's 888-539-2980, 888-539-2980. So first, before we get into all the juicy ideas, got to tell you that I was on Facebook today saying that you'd be here and asking people what they wish they could do to their front yard. And this woman who lives in New Mexico said that she wishes she could express her real self, but she can't because of
Homeowners associations.
Homeowners Association. She said that everybody on her block, or I guess the entire neighborhood, you basically can't even remove a plant without being charged $40.
Well, architectural committees, they have a good and a bad side, don't they?
I guess so. I mean, I totally understand the idea of having it look nice and neat and increasing the value of your neighborhood. Get that. Got it. But what would you advise to somebody in those situations where you want to have some creativity? I said, hey, can you at least put a wind chime out there, a water feature? She said, no, she has to do it in the backyard.
Well, I can tell you, working for 25 years in home improvement, I've dealt with everything from architectural committees to historical committees to, almost like Gestapo committees in some areas.
It kind of feels
sometimes it does.
Nazi.
But I haven't found one yet that really limits your ability to use colored flowers. I haven't. And I've come across a lot of homeowners associations. So if she has one like that would limit her ability to use colored flowers, I say, pack up, put a sign in the front and move out. But I think really you could express yourself with color. I mean, as our moods change through the season, through the years, we can either use the annuals that we can replant every year, blue for some parts of the year, orange and yellows. I don't think that a homeowners association or bylaws would ever preclude you from putting colored flowers. So I think that's one great way, just like your clothing, is to introduce color to that yard that fits you. Because if they're going to be that stringent on rules, you're not going to be changing the masonry or doing too many big things. Yeah,
and then there was this story in the news just this past week. A woman in the Detroit area grew a vegetable garden in her front yard, and the city, the neighbors took her to court.
Wow.
And then I guess the court said, are you out of your mind? She's fine. She can have her veggie garden. But I guess we're hearing more of this where the front yard, I guess it isn't just your yard, it's everybody's yard sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. You've got the associations, but you also have all these neighbors, right? And you've got a social standing and a hierarchy that you have to put up with. So you have to make at least the people on the left and right of you happy. I think the best bet, and I've done this because I've been a homeowner a long time, is you invite them over.
Well, I was going to say get them margaritas.
That's what okay. You invite them over for margaritas or my favorite Mai Tais.
Exactly.
And you talk about, you kind of organically introduce the fact that you're thinking about doing this or that in the front yard and get to know your neighbors, because if there's no complaints lodged, you're not going to have a problem with any association.
See, that's the ticket.
It's social.
You feed them. You make a party out of it.
Listen, it's all about people.
All right. Well, we got Billy Derian here, and we're going to talk more. We're going to focus first on the front yard. What are some fun things that you can do? What are some must-use essentials and materials? We got the ideas. Home wizard Cindy Dole here on KFWB News Talk 980. Oh, yeah, we love to have a little party here. It's called Home Wizards every Saturday, talking about the space that's the most important place in your life, your home. Cindy Dole here, so glad to have you with me. And Billy Derian is all about helping you with the outdoor spaces to really help you feel like they're rocking your world. So, Billy D., good to have you here.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
We love your show on DIY, Extra Yardage, and it seems like a lot of people struggle with this, don't we, in terms of what to do?
Yeah, I mean, it's confusing. First of all, there's the concept of really making up your mind what you want the place to look like because it's fairly permanent. You don't go drop 20, 30, 50, 100 grand in your front yard or backyard and want to change it every year.
That sounds like a lot of money. Does it have to be that much?
Well, you know what? I think full makeovers are.
Yeah.
You can add some personal touches that are smaller than that, but a lot of people nowadays really are staying in their houses, right?
Of course.
That's a whole show for a whole different day
Yeah.
of the market, but they're staying in their homes. So they're making major improvements. They're changing the complete personality, look, vibe, feel, and theme of their front and backyard. So the first thing is making a decision of what you want permanently there. The second thing is budget, right?
Right.
Of course. And the third thing is figuring out what will really work. What plants work in your zone, what things will coexist. And then I guess you also have to consider neighbors because as we talked about, neighbors can see in your yard and your front yard. Got to make everybody happy.
Well, I guess I better start cooking for all the neighbors really quickly.
I would. Or baking. Cookies always go a long way.
Well, so let's focus on the front yard first because I think that that's something that a lot of us, maybe we ignore it. I don't know. It's kind of hard to ignore because it's the first thing that you see. But if we were to just look at our front space, and let's say that we do have a house and we have a driveway, what should we be thinking about as we just kind of take an inventory? How do we realize that it isn't all that?
Well, I think, standing from where cars go by, first just stop and take a look. It's like standing in front of a full-length mirror when you get dressed.
Yeah.
Just take a minute to breathe, Don't just pull in your garage and run in with your groceries. Take a look at what everybody sees. And also look at the architecture of the home. I mean, so many people, they conceive a design concept based on something they love in a magazine. But if it doesn't fit the architectural design of your home, if you have a colonial home but you want ultra-Asian modern, something's not going to jive, right? So I think it's really important to just step back, take a few minutes, absorb it, and then understand what the true architecture of the facade of your home is.
So it has to have that continuity, you're thinking, huh?
It does. I mean, look, I like things that are eclectic as much as the next person, and I don't like symmetry all that much, but you got to draw the line somewhere.
Okay.
It's very much like a wardrobe, and you'll hear me relate to exterior design like your wardrobe. I mean, you're not going to wear, a checkered sport jacket with a Ed Hardy shirt, hopefully, because those two things just don't make sense together in the same space.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right, so let's talk about first the driveway, because the driveway, I took a walk recently in our neighborhood, and I just took a bunch of pictures of everyone's front yard. It's kind of fun just to get inspired by looking at other people's front yards. I think that's kind of a lesson, and to say, oh, I'd never do that, and oh, wow, I kind of like that. But in terms of the driveway itself, what would you say are some things to think about to make it prettier, to make it just more fun?
Well, the first thing is, as you were looking through those yards and those people's front yards, 90% of the driveways are probably cracked, right?
Pretty much. Earthquake country.
Earthquake country and weeds and tree roots. I think a bumpy, cracked up driveway says neglect and it says you don't care. So there's ways to fix it without tearing out the entire driveway. And we do this often in our industry as builders and designers, is you can take the cracked areas and actually cut them out with saws and incorporate borders of either stone material or even grass borders in there without, replacing the entire driveway. So first, let's get the cracks out and make it structurally sound. Plus tripping hazard. Think about walking up the driveway and tripping on your face,
right.
Carrying the groceries or the bottle of wine. I think the other thing is really, again, look at the house. Look at the materials that are on the front of your house. Is it veneered in rock? Is it veneered in brick? Is it just stucco? And try to work within that same realm of colors and textures and materials. I see these houses that are old, boring stucco houses here in California, and they've got this elegant travertine driveway with a giant medallion of, green marble. And I say something's going on. They have dreams of grandeur in
like
the driveway.
Like the Taj Mahal.
Taj Mahal driveway.
Yeah.
So the driveway really, I think, has to fit the facade. Because the front, everything's melting together. Now, that's a little different than the backyard. We can get to the backyard, obviously, but I think the backyard, you make it your space and forget about the architecture of the house.
Okay, all right. What are some of the materials besides kind of boring concrete that you think are kind of cool and new to sample with for the driveway?
Well, I like concretes because they're so durable, and that's why every driveway almost is concrete or blacktop. But there's the exposed aggregate where you take the small little multicolored rocks and they're embedded into the concrete. They're beautiful. They're pretty slip resistant. They're very durable over years. Also, of course, stamped and antique concretes are all the rage.
Love that.
Right, about 20 years ago, it really became popular to use a colored concrete. And the neat thing about stamped concretes is you can emulate simulate cobblestones or fish scales, they call it, where you have the small cobblestones in a fan pattern, flagstones, diagonal patterns, ashlar slate, which are the asymmetric geometry shapes. So stamped concrete by far is probably the most popular and the best material.
What about pavers?
Pavers are great. I mean, loose laid pavers, right?
Right.
Yeah, listen, on extra yardage, we use tons of loose laid pavers because they're DIY friendly, meaning homeowners can put them in themselves on a bed of sand. Plus, they come in all these great variegated colors. So you can create these effects in multi grays or in multi browns or reds. And there's no cracking, right? Because they're loose laid. They're not put in with hard mortar. So if there's an earthquake or some movement or a root, you can just pull them out, grade the sand underneath, pop them back in, you're done. So I'm glad you brought that up because I almost forgot that pavers probably are one of the best, and they're really popular here on the West Coast.
And how do you feel about having a little grass or some planting material? Well, you mentioned cutting out part of the concrete to do some of that, but if you wanted a nice, like a European style design, almost very precise look to your driveway, would you suggest that, where the center is all grass and then the sides are some other kind of stone or pavers or something?
Sure, and I actually like the effect where down the middle of your car, let's say you had a single garage or a double garage, you're not going to run over the grass. You can have a strip down the center.
Exactly.
You see that in model homes, show houses, and I think it's beautiful. I've also seen where you have two separate garages and they do the palm trees down the center in a very linear. That linear growth effect gives you the illusion of length, a forced perspective that your driveway's longer. So anytime you can get a narrow strip down the driveway of anything, whether it's a border material, grass, or plants, you're going to give the effect they have a longer driveway. And who doesn't want a longer driveway, right?
Right.
It feels like you have a big house, like you're pulling up to an estate.
Love it. Well, so once we have changed the driveway, and by the way, these are all ideas that you would suggest that the DIYer try themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah?
And don't let me forget about just refacing existing driveways, because you can lay over or veneer driveways, and there's a couple of cool techniques. One is there's companies, this is not very DIY friendly, but there are companies who lay over a skin coat of a colored material, which is a composite mixed with concrete. So essentially it's like icing a cake, but you get that old drab gray concrete to turn into gorgeous, antiqued stamped effects. That's one way. The other way is going to your local home improvement store and buying slate. Slate's inexpensive.
Love slate.
Right, but it sounds expensive. You say, we're going to do a slate driveway, and they say, oh, I can't afford it. $2 to $3 a square foot is most slate.
Yeah.
And that's reasonable compared to a lot. Stamped concrete can be upwards of $10 a square foot. So you can buy slate for $2 to $3 a square foot. Either watch Extra Yardage, my show, another plug, because I show people how to do these veneer techniques, and lay the slate over the existing driveway. You're going to have only about a quarter to half inch of height difference, so you shouldn't have much problem when you are at the apron of the driveway or the garage. And it's going to look like $1 trillion bucks.
Okay, and the upkeep is easy.
It is, and especially if you seal it. And, a lot of times at the home improvement stores, you can ask anybody on the stone aisle or masonry aisle for the sealer. They make sealers specific to driveways because tires are hot, so you go screeching in your driveway. The sealer has to be impervious to heat, too.
Okay. Well, thank you. The driveway, that's a great, I'm pumped about slate.
I love slate.
I think that I would like to do that over our driveway.
And by the way, slate's not always gray. It's brown. They have browns and greens and all different colors.
Yeah. Oh, and green sounds really yummy.
Beautiful. Emerald slate.
All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the things that we can do to welcome us and those that we invite to our home to experience something really magnificent in terms of tapping into all the senses, whether it's a water feature or some other cool things to do to invite people to keep walking from the driveway to the front door, and then we'll kind of venture into the backyard too, huh? Is that
Let's
good?
do it.
All right.
I love it.
888-539-2980 is the number. If you have a question, call on in. You're listening to Home Wizard Cindy Dole here, talking to Billy Derian from Extra Yardage. We're having fun, so we're just getting started. Don't go away. We're back in a few.